talk about the new war, the cyber war, because that, in fact, is what it is. There's no other way to sugarcoat it. Some interesting background about those pictures. This one has appeared on the cover of a book, and that's actually taken from my dad's plane. He was a bombardier of World War II, lead bombardier of the 75th Squadron. They were known as the D-Day leaders, because that's what they did. And he learned the techniques of that war, which leads to my John Adams quote. He studied that so I could learn engineering and be here today. So I'd like to thank, obviously, Oracle and Cranes and Convention Center for setting this up. And again, my dad for doing what he had to do, so now I can do what I'd like to do. Okay, the roadmap. I'm going to cover a little bit about background, and it's important. And then I'm going to cover what we know now based upon all the research that has been done. Some of it theoretical, most of it empirical, all of it costs money and time and pain, every bit of it. And then after that, some defense, some guidelines, and then some very specific things that you can do or you should be doing, some of which you're probably already doing, but it's highly doubtful if you're doing all of them. Okay, the war zone, your healthcare facility. Every single data source is a risk, no exception. And compared to 10 or 20 years ago, every piece of instrumentation, medical instrumentation, is at risk. Our instruments tell us way more than they used to, and that data is becoming of increasing importance in the providing of care. And that's a risk source. Anything manually entered, anything instrument entered, all communication ports are threat surfaces. And that is something that a lot of people forget because so many devices come with embedded COM ports. And you don't even know they're there, and there's a piece of firmware that's dealing with that and allows for easy access. Now the question is, people always ask themselves, why me? Or am I being targeted? For the vast majority of people, individuals being hacked, the answer is no. Harvested, yes. Targeted, no. Anybody know the difference? Okay, harvested is where I cast a big net in the ocean because I'm hungry, I want fish. I don't care if it's your fish or you're the fish or you're the fish. As long as I get enough fish. That's all I care about. Targeted is when they're after you. There's a reason they're after you. They want you specifically, something you have. And the key thing here is that PHI data is the best thing in the world for identity theft, by far and away, personal health information. It's the strongest identity theft. It makes it hard for you to prove that you're you. I can recreate you digitally anywhere, anytime. And that's a big problem. It's used to create fake IDs. It's used to get credit. It's used for bulk distribution to co-conspirators, direct sale, criminal activity, and terrorism. Big time. And personal health records fetch between $50 and $100 per record on the black market. That's a few pieces of silver for the people who can break in. So healthcare is a target. And the estimated industry costs are about $5.6 billion annually. A couple of charts, the motivations behind a lot of attacks. The big blue area, I don't know if you can read that. That's hacktivism. People are doing because they want to. You don't normally worry about those folks. I call them script kiddies. They can't really hurt you a whole lot. Implement standard network defense, net-centric defense, you keep the kids out. But the serious folks are the cybercrime, and that's in the red zone over there. They're serious about it. And they will take their time in getting to you. So, and also, remember, the thief, the person who breaks in, is not normally the end user. He's just the guy to do the dirty work, to sell it to somebody who's going to commit the crime or do something else. Rarely is the thief the end user. The data passes through many hands. Now, HIPAA and meaningful use. Okay, the rules are here. They establish penalties and that sort of thing. I don't want to get into details. There's been too many seminars within these walls about that. The bottom line is HIPAA mandates some processes, procedures, and involves people and technology as well, particularly Part 164 of the regulations. And that's all well and good. You have to protect the data, et cetera, et cetera. Meaningful use, of course, has been set up to encourage people to adopt electronic medical record systems. All right? And, of course, everyone knows that Epic pretty much owns that space right now because they're the first to establish meaningful use. And as Venkat pointed out, people are making decisions out of convenience, out of a pressure to change, whether it be regulatory, governmental, or whatever, and oftentimes they're not thinking it through. They're just reacting. They're in react mode. And so they're not planning, and that's why they are where they are right now. A little reality therapy here. Compliance with the rules is not going to save you from a cyber attack. It will let you survive a HIPAA audit. That's important. Been through those, been through FDA audits. Helped out a few large pharmaceutical companies who shall remain nameless through FDA audit process. So I'm very familiar with what's involved. It allows for reimbursement for the use of EMR. That's great, too. It will not protect you from a cyber attack and will not keep you out of the courtroom. By way of background, I have been an expert witness in federal court, coast to coast, testifying over 100 times under oath in the past 25 years. I see it when it gets ugly. Trust me, it can get very, very ugly. And anybody who thinks that they're going to avoid the courtroom by obeying the rules, all obeying the rules is going to do for you protection-wise is that will prevent criminal penalties due to gross negligence. Civil penalties, sorry, that's not going to happen. Okay? You're extremely exposed. And nothing you can do that obeys all the CMS rules is going to stop that. Some recent casualties. These are just gleaned from news reports. Everyone's heard of Target stores. CEO, CIO fired. I actually thought the CEO stepped down. I dug a little deeper, realized now he got the boot by the board. They're looking at about over 90 lawsuits are filed and pending. Ultimate resolution up in the air. Community health systems, we just refer to them. And 4.5 million estimated PHI records stolen across 206 hospitals. They still don't know the distribution. The investigation is ongoing. Their estimated cost, 75 to 150 million, as Venkat pointed out, for both remediation and everything else. And of course, California University, Bartell, Home Depot, investigation ongoing. All these things will get decided in the courts, but guaranteed the cost is not zero. And attorneys are on the case, which means the meter's running. Now, with all due respect to anybody who may have the JD degree, I've never known an attorney to solve a problem. They assign blame and assess damages. Helpful in some cases, but I've never known a single one to assign a problem. Some of my best friends are attorneys. It doesn't matter. So, now, cyber warfare objectives. Somebody's going after you. What's the offensive purpose? Basically, steal or corrupt data is the big thing. Some go for denial of availability, denial of service. That's one aspect. Cause some damage if you're really nasty, or what we did to Iran, frankly, with their centrifuges when they wanted to refine uranium, caused unwanted and undetected operations. We did a terrific job on that. Defensive purpose. What do you want to do? You want to maintain availability so you can get to your systems when you need to. That's fairly easy to do. Standard net-centric defenses will do that. You want to protect data. That's medium difficulty, medium to hard, depending upon how your system's architected. You want to maintain operational capability. Aha. Your IT systems exist for a reason, right? What are they for? To get you the right data at the right time in the right way so you can use it. Otherwise, why did you buy it if it's not working for you? Okay? So that is hard to do. Prevent damage is hard to do. And the hardest to do is to prevent zombie attacks. Those are very, very difficult. Very difficult to do. Okay. Now, your objectives also is to establish a kill chain. The old idea of a hacker working in his or her basement and, getting online and doing some damage, most of the kids have really been weeded out because the net-centric defenses are better these days. But the really evil people, the ones who are generally state actors, or the ones who have a lot of financial incentive, are going to use an APT, right? Advanced Persistent Threat. And that's the example of a kill chain. You basically do some recon, you weaponize or something, you deliver it, then you do the exploit. And once you do the exploit, you're not done. That's the cool thing about an APT. Once I got the combination, you're safe, and you don't even know I've done it. Every time you put something in there, I note it. Don't necessarily steal it right then and there. I steal it when I want it, when I got a buyer for it, when I can monetize what you have, whether it be data, personal health records, whatever. Once I can monetize what you have. And the cool thing is you never know. I leave no fingerprints on the crime. None at all. Way cool. Now, what's the battlefield? A little bit of sit rep, right? Situation report. We're getting beat. Successful hacks are happening daily. Some are due to state-sponsored actors. Many key systems have already been compromised, and you guys can read that. The key thing is, what are we doing? We're putting out fires. What was in the bucket? Probably the guy's lunch. He over-nuked it in the microwave. You think he wants to eat it when he's done? No. What's the analogy? The analogy is if you're putting out a fire, damage has already occurred. You got to go find another lunch. Somebody broke in. Something happened. Then you do forensic analysis. That guy who lined that chalk line, he ain't coming home for dinner, ever. Okay? That was a fatal attack. Very important to note that. That's the kind of thing that we've been doing as an industry. Putting out fires, forensic analysis, we've got to start thinking here. And never forget, if you take just one thing away from what I'm doing today, is it's an IQ war where smart beats dumb all the time. It's an IQ war. Brains beats bucks all the time. And the guys, even state actors, may not necessarily always be well-funded, but the bottom line is you're spending more on defense than they're spending on offense. Quite a bit, by an order or two of magnitude, at least. And your current thinking isn't working. If it were all working, we wouldn't have a problem. We wouldn't be here if it were working. All right, there's really 4 aspects to kind of generating the problem in a way. You got personnel issues. Those are the biggest, I think. Risks are not adequately understood. People don't really know where the risk sources are in their systems. They think they know. They have some idea, possibly a wet finger to the wind. Rough guess, that's what they have. Technical issues. The emphasis has always been on ease of use, ease of connectivity, and using common off-the-shelf technology, which I'll show later is kind of scary when you apply it. Because what's good for allowing your son or daughter to watch animated dinosaurs is not very handy when running your healthcare system. And the things which are designed into an IT system, which allow for that, you automatically inherit when you buy a system or server for your IT, for the functions you need to perform. And you may not want that. That's a problem. Consumer market is driving this. And you got some economic issues. I already mentioned that. Consumer economics is driving this whole thing. So if everybody in healthcare said, I'm not going to buy these servers or this equipment or this gear. I don't like it. Produce something better. The industry is just going to chuckle and ignore you. Because for every one of you who says no, there's 10,000 people who will say, yo, and they want it. And so with that kind of ratio, you're not going to win that battle. Then there's management issues. Your existing certifications, which indicate compliance with standards, they're useless. Hang them on the wall. It's nice to have. Protects you, again, from the criminal side. But as far as defending you against a real cyber attack, it's like rice paper. You can punch right through it. And mission-critical functions have been deployed on non-trusted platforms. That's been the biggest mistake, part of the PC revolution, which has been going on for 30 years. If you're putting important stuff excuse me, on these things, I would never do that. I don't have important stuff here. If I lose this, I don't care. My important stuff is not here. And then, of course, for the few people in the industry who do understand what's going on and want to plan ahead, does management ever give you a budget to plan ahead? I've rarely seen that. Somebody tells me I'm not going to believe them until they prove it. Rarely happens. Okay. Now, why is this whole thing such a huge problem? People think, well, it's obvious. Really? I don't know. Think about it. In the 60s and 70s, did we have that problem? That's when I learned this stuff. We didn't have that problem. Because the way it was up in the upper right-hand corner, you had a dial-up, right? Very easy to control. You had the phone number and the access creds, or you didn't. And if you didn't have the right modem or and the right private line, you didn't get on the system. Didn't have that problem. Then today people think, well, yeah, but it's not that much more complicated. I've got a complicated network, I've got the internet, but I got that brick firewall in there. I'm okay. That firewall is going to save me because that's really how I'm controlling access to my system. That's what a lot of people think they have. In their mind, they've got a very simple model of what they have. The reality is the lower right. Your network is a lot more complicated, and there's probably not a single person in your organization who can even draw the diagram. It might be distributed across 15 people, 5 of which no longer work for your firm. They're retired. They went somewhere else. They might work for your competition now. And that knowledge went with them. How many firms really are AR about documentation? Mine is. I insist on that. Thorough beatings for people who don't. But for the people who don't, you have no idea what's out there and all the connections and all the data pathways that vital information is traveling over. You don't know. Anybody ever catalog it? So there you go. That's a problem. And there's just an inadequate understanding of both the threat surfaces and the attack vectors that are out there. A very inadequate understanding. All right, the other elements that we need to understand for background purposes, who's making your stuff? What's interesting is a lot of offshore manufacturing has happened, and all the chips are made these days using silicon compilation. Why do we care? Well, it is very easy to insert buried registers and other extra transistors on the chip. So that chip looks normal, will behave normal, until I send it the secret evil Steve code and make it do what I want it to do when I wish it to happen. And there's no way you can test for that or know about it unless you get extraordinarily lucky. So if you don't know its origins, do not trust it. Do not trust it. Okay? And you think, well, wait a minute, I bought from Siemens. Well, who did they buy from? I bought from Rockwell, Allen Bradley. Well, who did their code? Where did that happen? Who are the guys that did that? Did somebody else broker it? They don't know what's in there. I guarantee their engineering doesn't know. So what you want to do is interrogate your vendors. Notice I didn't use the word ask. Interrogate them. Bright lights, sleep deprivation, whatever it takes. But get that information for your own sanity, because are those guys going to indemnify you when you get hacked? Something to think about. Now, some cybersecurity fallacies. I can make my network 100% bulletproof. With all due apologies to my friends at Cisco, that's their mantra. They are wrong. Sorry. You cannot. And the reason being is the TCP/IP protocol, it stands for Transmission Control Protocol / Internet Protocol, was designed to permit ease of connectivity. And it has one huge flaw in it. It permits challenge and response without authentication. That is all I need to mess with you. I don't need anything else. That is enough. Awesome. And until that protocol is either replaced or systems migrated to secure platforms, so you don't care if your network's polluted, you're going to deal with dirty packets. Evil packets with malicious intent. And that's what's going to happen. Okay. You can have browser access being 100% secure. Sorry, sports fans, that's not true either. Give me a browser, and you're mine. Okay? Healthcare.gov is beginning to discover that. Oh, they're seeing the effects of that, and that was sadly all too predictable. When I heard they were going to launch a website, I thought, oh gosh, please tell me that's not going to happen. It's on a browser, it's not going to be safe. Firewalls intrusion detection will make me safe. No. No. Again, all these things will help. Antivirus software will do it. No. They're backward-looking, not forward-looking. One of the things that we kind of invented, I don't want to brag about too much what we're doing, but is we realize that doesn't work, and that model is the wrong model to use, looking in the rearview mirror. If you're driving down a highway at a high rate of speed, you better be focused on the windshield. So what does that mean? To translate the metaphor into practical technology. If you can identify or DNA what's yours and what should be yours, then anything that isn't obviously is something foreign you don't want on the system. That's kind of a better way to look at it. Get into more of that later. And of course, NIST certifications, I got my cert, so I'm okay. My people are trained, I'm okay. You're probably better than most, but that's not enough. Still get hacked all the time. And again, my favorite Samuel Clemens, Mark Twain quote, I have to include it. It's not what you don't know that gets you into trouble, but it's what you know for sure that just ain't so. It gives you that false sense of security, false sense of confidence, and it's completely wrong. Brilliant. And 150 years later, it's still valid. Okay, a little bit of security technology. I'm not going to go into too much detail on these things. Firewalls, antivirus, what they can do, they can protect against desktop, network transmitted stuff. That's nice. Firewalls reduce network traffic, right, by keeping known evil packets out, saving your bandwidth. That's all good. And antivirus software protects against what it knows about. That's handy. It can't prevent damage from new viral strains, right? It can't do any cleanup from cyber attacks. Can't make your IT system tamper-proof. Can't provide 100% security. It just can't do any of that. It's not what it's designed to do. That doesn't mean don't install it. It just means have realistic expectations when you do. Okay, there's a lot of tech stuff here. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but the purpose of these slides is to let you know there are techniques that I can teach you to break through firewalls, both stateless and stateful firewalls. Okay? Most of the firewalls have built-in security errors due to design flaws. No need to go into that. People using the default password on a Linksys box, like admin, and not changing it. That's the easiest thing. You know how many phone systems I can break into with that? It's a good thing I work for the good guys. Firewall hacking, you want to do some port scanning, banner grabbing. These are just techniques. I don't want to go over the details. You know, I can give you guys electronic copies of this later so you can review that. Okay? But there's a whole bunch of ways to do that and a whole bunch of websites that you can go to that will give you free tools which allow you to bust through a firewall. It's not like you got to build it yourself anymore. This stuff's on the web. Download it. Have fun. Get yourself in all kinds of trouble. Let me know how the SWAT team flash grenades work out. So anyway, there's more firewall stuff. Encryption. Do want to spend a little time here. Everybody thinks I encrypt my data, therefore I'm safe. Oof. Okay, not true for several reasons. The most advanced codes are of the block code structure, okay? And AES, Advanced Encryption Standard, DES, the old data encryption standard, and triple DES, and those kinds of things, RSA keys. Both are hackable now. With the processing power we have, what was computationally intractable 10 years ago is now doable from my iPhone. Of course, it interferes with me downloading a new tune, but I got to wait 5 more minutes to break it. Drat. You know, it just takes me a little longer to break into your car. You know, not much longer. And that's what happens. The best known technology right now is constructive key management. That was invented by Ed Scheit, former head of cryptography at the CIA. He's a friend of mine. The statue in front of the CIA headquarters is this big obelisk with cryptos on it, K-R-Y-P-T-O-S. And there's an encryption beneath that, which is the last code he left when he retired from the CIA. No one's broken in. He's a good enough a friend where I'm not going to ask him and he's not going to tell me. You know, and if you ask him, hey, Ed, can you keep a secret? You know, I can keep a secret. He'll respond, I can too. So, but in any event, that's the best standard out there, constructive key management right now. But all encryption techniques, what's their fundamental flaw? They rely on a piece of software to decrypt, executing on whatever computer platform is doing the decryption. Awesome. Okay, so like at the input of this block on the left side, that's where all the difficult stuff comes in. The right side is the stuff I want. So why should I do the work? Why not let you decrypt it for me? And then I just reach in and grab it out of RAM once you've converted the ciphertext to plain text. I don't work hard. I don't pick locks. That's work. I let you do it. Then I grab it. Way more fun. Because I'm old, I'm lazy. I just don't like to do this anymore. Now, so all the hacking really is done for encryption. It targets the point of decryption and the algorithms that either generate the keys or apply the keys or perform the decryption. That's how encryption is beaten. Now, that doesn't mean don't do it. Encryption is still the strongest defense right now for data in motion. All right? It's still the best stuff. But, you know, beware that that's where attacks will occur. You cannot go through a presentation like this without mentioning the NSA, Cyber Command, Ed Snowden. The former CIO of the NSA and the CIA is a guy by the name of Major General Dale Myros, and he's an acquaintance of mine. And yes, I've been to CIA headquarters, and I've had private meetings with him. Very interesting guy. Yes, Virginia, the NSA does do domestic spying. I don't think anybody who's rational would question that today. They have the keys to all the common encryption algorithms, so they don't have to break them anymore. Okay, it's an open book to them. All free hosting and email services. Anybody use Gmail? Yeah, okay, people confess. All right, every single thing in Gmail and provided by Gmail is subject to lexicographic analysis. Every single piece of content that you generate or receive. And if something's threatening, it goes to the NSA or law enforcement authorities, FBI, whatever, for further analysis and storage in the database. Or, you know, again, the NSA maintains a huge, it's beyond, it's like exabyte level storage facility in Utah, 7 acres under roof. A friend of mine works there. He's pretty high up, exec VP. But the bottom line is anything on those free services is exposed. The old joke in Silicon Valley, if the product is free, you are the product. What you do with it, what you type, what you enter, what you read, you're the product. That's why they give it to you free. You may want to read that 4-point font and invisible ink at the bottom about what they do with the data. Now, here's where it gets more interesting. NSA has all the back doors to the major systems. Microsoft, Yahoo, Verizon, Google, they've all provided the NSA with all the back doors that they want. So they can bust in a system. In fact, that lawsuit, Sun versus Microsystems, I was not involved in that particular lawsuit, but on the plaza with the guys that were, I was testifying as an expert in Silicon Valley, and I had the morning session, they had the afternoon session, and some days it was vice versa. The net result was Microsoft could keep 2 APIs secret, some of which involve privilege escalation and other things. The NSA uses those. What does that mean for you? Well, what's your liability from a healthcare organization? Let's say a state actor, our own NSA, breaks into something, and creates and accidentally spills something, or you have another Edward Snowden case, right? And personal health information is exposed. Well, you got victims here, the NSA here, all powerful, all knowing, and then you cannot sue them. You are in the middle. What do you think is going to happen to you? Yeah, lots of lawyers are going to say, how much money you got? And they're just going to be licking their chops to get in that one. So I guarantee you that's going to happen. In fact, I'll make a bold prediction. By the end of 2016, we'll see that. It's probably already happening now. We'll discover it by the end of 2016. Lawsuits commence in 2017, and the whole process, the wheels grind slowly and creakily, but they grind forward. I'm sure I'll get a phone call to be an expert witness in one of them. That'll happen. But that's something you need to think about. And how that's going to get worked out is going to be by a seminal court case. Somebody's going to be the victim. That court case will determine how future things get handled. You don't want to be that example. It's like being the slowest gazelle in the herd with a saber-toothed tiger nipping at your heels. You do not want to be that example. Okay. Other hacker methods involve footprinting. I won't detail that, but that's discovering an organization's network information. There's various techniques for that, and there's all kinds of tools you can download for that. Scanning is another one. That picture was hard to find. Yesterday, just about all wear hats, and they all drink Mountain Dew. He's operating a network scanner right there. That was hard to find. That took me a little bit of doing. I actually looked for that. But there's ways of doing that. And again, there's tools. I just list some stuff, websites you can go. Don't give it to your 15 or 16-year-old kid who's got too much time in their hands. They can get you into trouble with that. Just be careful who sees this stuff. Enumeration, that's identifying all the systems that are within your domain, within your network, what operating systems they are, what are they running, what version, security updates, things of that nature. And there's 100 ways to do that. By the way, password guessing software is really cheap today. It wasn't 5 years ago. And it's really, really good. Amazingly good stuff. So, there's a lot of tools that can make a 15-year-old a little bit more dangerous than he used to be because he's using the work of somebody else, some smart person who created it. Again, we call them script kiddies, but they're out there. So beware, beware. Network hacking, your goal there is owning the network, listening to sensitive traffic. That's the guy who's the old, remember war driving? Yeah, that's what he's doing right there. He's war driving, scanning, and basically conducting scanning, port analysis, and doing footprinting all with one little box. I was just driving around and see what networks are open and which ones are locked and what he can get into. And of course, you drive around Reston or Herndon, Virginia, right, if you want to know where the action is. That's where most of the DoD Big Six are. Herndon and Reston, Virginia, in case you want to know. With a couple of them in Vienna, Virginia. There's a few sprinkled around there. But all along Leesburg Pike, right? Yeah, have all kinds of endless entertainment doing that. Let's see. Medical device hacking. This one's way cool. How many implants have some sort of communication? Like, too many of them. And the problem is if you can read it, you can write it. And it's already been able to reverse engineer to send a wireless signal to a device. There's a hacking procedure that's already there. You can trigger an ICD identification readback, and there you go. You've stolen the information with no physical contact just by being in proximity with someone who's had a heart implant. Now, if you're really nefarious, and this is one that if I had a heart implant, I'd be scared out of my mind, the ultimate denial of service attack. You send a command to power it down. You just will kill him in 30 minutes or 15. Folks, I don't know how to get around that. That's the perfect murder. How are you going to convict somebody? He just flips a button in his pocket, strolls past. Send the command to power down. All of a sudden, the guy don't feel so well. By the time he gets to the hospital, it's probably game over. That's a very real threat. It's extraordinarily real. And intriguingly enough, some of the chips used to implement that piece are found in common toys, right? You can go get a couple of toys for 15 or 20 bucks that got the same chips from Motorola in them for comm gear that are used in these medical devices. Hint, Motorola makes mostly good, best RF chips. And Burr Brown is the other manufacturer. So, something to be aware of. I'd be very, very scared about that one. Automobile hacking, this one's just for fun, just to show it can be done. By the way, that's a real picture of a real speedometer by a company called CarShark. Okay, that speedometer is reading 140 miles an hour. That shifting lever is in park. Now imagine you're on a jury, and it's about a criminal case. Maybe it's a drunk driver or something going on, and the prosecuting attorney comes out and says, well, we got the black box recorder, which all modern cars have, as you know. I probably have one of the older cars in the parking lot which doesn't have one of those. How could you believe anything that's there? I can take that black box through a variety of threat services outlined here and have you driving in the middle of the Pacific Ocean at 3 in the morning. And I can put you at the ocean surface, or I can put you 6 miles down. I can make that thing say what I want. So you can't trust the data you're getting from it. Can't believe it. I wouldn't. So that's why they don't like me for jury duty much, one side or the other. Hates it when you've been an expert in court. They don't like that. But that's the problem. Now, just get in the right order. I'm not sure how I skipped all that. Bear with me here. Skipping through the fun part. Okay, to that, yeah. There's hacking you can do on the bus just by picking up vibrations from somebody sitting next to you. No big deal there. Oh yeah, X.25, that's the U.S. Secret Service. I've given talks to them and their law enforcement folks, the cybercrime experts, to hack their radio. There's a Girl Tech messenger toy. It does instant messaging. It retails for about 15 bucks. It uses the same transceiver that the Secret Service radios use. Now, how hard do you think it is to reverse engineer that? Secret Service has since changed a few things about how they do what they do, but for a while their broadcasts were totally in the clear. Hack the chip, you know what the chip is doing, and you fabricate your hardware and go from there. Now that still requires some degree of sophistication. You've got to be a pretty good compy or double E, but it's quite doable. Okay, because that's another example of why you shouldn't use common off-the-shelf technology all the time, especially something that retails for $15. Because eventually that's the key, becomes the key to your undoing. There's other bad examples out there. Drone hacking, that's always fun. Sending the drone to drop missiles on somebody you don't like. But it's quite doable. And that just gives you several scenarios, mostly by sensor spoofing, just to make it think it's head-on course when it's not. That's a blast. Oh, non-electronic hacking, the final one. Somebody's, your 4GS phone, who's got 4GS? 4G? Yeah, okay. They got the best accelerometers out there, better than the 3G. So what does that mean? Yeah, people go to the bar, they get a cocktail, they're sitting down and talking business. You're banging away, accessing your stuff. I'm sitting maybe 3 or 4 people away from you on a very hard bar with the right software, picking up those vibrations, identifying using system identification techniques, a little bit of advanced math, far more than just mere correlation. Sysident techniques, and I'm identifying what your keystroke is with about 90% accuracy. Awesome. And in no way did I get near you or touch anything or hook up a cable. And then I get your passwords and login credentials that way. Outstanding. Couldn't help but have the picture of Ben Franklin up there to discover electricity. You don't need him to do this one. It's something interesting. Now, as Venkat referred to earlier, how did we get into this mess? Because as he pointed out, if you do not understand the history, you won't understand the real problem, and therefore all the solutions, all the money, all the effort and anguish that you're going to spend is going to be spent incorrectly, improperly, or insufficiently. I mean, you got something done, but it's not enough. Well, the simple history. Basically, the early years, Getting hardware to work was the issue, and the operating system concepts weren't around. Okay? So no big deal. We didn't worry about break-ins. You physically secured the computer site. If you had a key, you got in. If you didn't, you didn't. Not too hard. Later on, hardware became more reliable and operating systems evolved. And then the key invention was multitask operating systems required task isolation. So what you're doing on the computer doesn't affect what you're doing, doesn't affect what I'm doing. Everyone's got their own sandbox to play in. Sound good on paper. Later on, multi-user operating systems were more than one, not just more than one task, but more than one user, because one user can spawn several tasks. Now you need user isolation. Okay? That's another invention. And protection so that bad things or stupid things done by one user doesn't affect another one. So you need that. All right. Later on, mid-range machines were introduced. You get a large installed base. And you got significant remote access due to public networks. And a secure system design was introduced in October 1972 by the good old United States Air Force. It's called the Anderson Report. Very important report. Sad part is about 98% of the people in the business ignored it. Oops. Oops, oops, oops. And then you got the desktop revolution. Started in 1980, roughly. I was a senior at Case West Reserve at that time, to officially date myself. Inventions 1, 2, and 3 were ignored when that PC was created. Why? Who cared about multi-user, multitask? Anybody old enough to remember the old DOS? You told it to print, and that's what it did. Paid no attention to you. You can go out and have dinner, do something. Come back, and if it's done printing, they'll start paying attention to you again. Took quite a few years before Microsoft even gave us a print spooler. Okay. Well, the problem is it was designed to be simple, cheap, affordable, blah, blah, blah. Still retail for what, about $2,000 to $5,000 when it first came out. All right? But that's what happened. Then people got the idea that I'm saying, this is cheap, I like it, I don't need the mainframe, don't need a data center. Started deploying it, and the operating system grew to encompass what used to be applications. Security deliberately eliminated from the design. Totally eliminated. Why do we need that? We don't need that. It's for home use. Who cares about making it secure? Multimedia and entertainment matter, and they still do. And the huge installed base prevents change, right? You got a big installed base. You can't change everything, whereas back in the 60s, you build a computer that was kind of a one-of-a-kind deal. You can make another one and make changes. Today, no way. Everything's got to be compatible. USB 2.0, 3.0, FireWire. Well, there's your problem. So you're compatible with everybody. In reality, for security, you only want to be compatible with a select group. So that's one of the problems. Software systems are built this way. Again, to understand them. It's a leaning tower piece built on a really crummy framework. And the problem is all the standard security techniques and approaches are working at the top layer of this. They're not working in the base. And I like to use this letter analogy because if you look at the top, it's very hard to write books of poetry when somebody is screwing around with your alphabet. In fact, I don't even think it's doable. And the fact that this industry is in the condition it's in has proven empirically that it's not doable to do that. So we need to address things down here. And that's architecture, the fundamentals. And we're not. It's too scary, too expensive. These layers are made by different vendors who compete. And the interface features come and go from release to release. So you don't know what you're getting, and things which used to work, the new version, now they don't, or they work differently, et cetera, et cetera. We've all dealt with that. In fact, if ever ran up against a person who came up with the iPhone 4 interface, well, they'd come away from the confrontation a little worse for the wear. All right, software structure. That's a generic app structure. Almost every application on the planet Earth obeys that flowchart. The problem with that flowchart is any malware can observe the process, can interfere with it, can steal data. That's the problem, or one of the fundamental problems. So the insecurity is built right into the app. But the problem is, with this structure, this is why browsers and .NET and those kinds of designs, J2EE, AJAX, all that, this is why that they're going to generate stuff that'll look cool, that'll work, but are going to be horribly vulnerable. This is one of the reasons why. Because all this stuff is occurring on top of a non-trusted computing base. So no matter what you do, you're going to be vulnerable. No matter how well your software guys program it, it won't matter. Because the stuff they're working with is messed up. I give you as a builder bad building material, what can you expect? Okay, design tools, development environment, same thing. Okay, most code is script files, and these days there are so many layers of interpretation between the script files people are writing and the actual code that the machine is running. Too many layers. Can't keep track of it. And most software people don't even know what is the machine doing with that script file you write. Oh, I don't know. When I was a professor years ago, I would give those kind of exam questions, give a code stream, and then give the ones and zeros and say, match it. People had trouble with that, understandably. It's not easy to draw that. So security results. What have we learned? What do we know? Okay. First of all, you got to control access to data objects. All right. You got to track and record that. That's got to be done fundamentally. You've got to permit only authorized entities to read write data. And discovering security flaws one by one and fixing them is not going to work. You never catch up. You're always behind. You know what a zero-day vulnerability is, right? Okay, those are vulnerabilities that people would discover, and there's been zero time to get it fixed or to even deal with it or even know it's there. And those are obviously exploited quite a bit. Now, what a secure system needs to do, and this is right out of the Anderson report from October 1972. Policy, accountability, and assurance. You got to have object marking. That's really the key thing. This. That's the thing that really prevents Microsoft and even Linux in some areas, and certainly Solaris and other types of OSs at a fundamental level from being as effective as they could be, because they didn't institute object marking at the low level. That's key. And you can't bolt that on ex post facto. Right? Anything bolted on ex post facto can be erased. So there's a couple sets of standards. These are DoD standards. I won't go over the details. 5200.28, based on the Air Force report, came out in December '86. Okay? There's a new set of standards, NIST and ISO 15408. These stink. Just take it from me. If you want to use them, that's fine. The DoD standards are a lot stronger. This is what happens, when they say the old joke, an elephant is a horse designed by committee. And that's what you got here. You got something that is simply not very effective. These are called the common criteria. But I just thought I'd bring it up because they do exist. Now, IT systems we know are built over time. Software is built in layers, we know that. And focusing on the top layers doesn't work for security, we know that. And very bad engineering and very bad architecture and coding choices have led us to where we are by using the wrong technologies, the wrong approach to software design, the wrong approach to deployment, and the wrong approach to access and everything. And the consumer market has driven us in that direction because we perceive these convenient approaches to be cheaper. People did stuff because it was cheap and convenient, not because it was proven to be effective or efficacious. And that's a problem. And of course, the worst thing is you inside a critical function to a non-secure platform. You can't add on security, and the bottom line is that equation right there. A non-secure system plus the magic software will never get you a secure system. Can't be done, because the non-secure system at its core has fundamental flaws that are not going to be fixed by that, but only by a redesign, according to the Air Force security model. It's no way to do it. Stuxnet, I won't bore you with the details, but for those interested in the hard copy of this or electronic copy, I explained how we broke in and all the steps involved in affecting Iran centrifuges. Just to show you how sophisticated an attack can get and how thorough it can be. Common security questions, we know what they are. The important thing is useful, achievable objectives. What can we do, given all this? I've been spending, an hour explaining the problems. All right, we need to get to some solutions, which I will do in a few minutes. What you can do is protect data access, provide continuity. That you can do. The stuff in the lower right, you're not going to do. So don't waste your money trying. You can't prevent cyber attacks. You cannot cyber shield every desktop. You can't protect the network from all the evil packets. Not doable. Minimize it if you can, but you're not going to be 100% clean there. And prevent all human errors, prevent insider attacks. And you're not going to be able to accurately identify all the malware in your system. You can't. You can't. So don't waste your money trying. These are the things that are important anyway. As you point out, what pays the bills? Operational capability, clinical decision support, getting the right data at the right place at the right time, and making sure that the wrong people don't have it. That's what we got to focus on. All right, the 3 mistakes that we made to get into this mess, the obligatory Dilbert cartoon, had to have it, is small systems don't scale up, but they were cheap and we used them. Oops. Security was never built in from the ground up where it needed to be built. Network demands ironclad object access controls, and by the time they networked the world of PCs, it was too late. Oh, by the way, an interesting sidebar. Why didn't IBM jump on that Anderson report in October '72 when they were still the computing leader? Well, the guy who headed up the project to do that was a guy by the name of Barry Schrager, again, an acquaintance of mine. And the problem was IBM was really controlled by their channels, right? System 36, 34s, and 38s were out there at the time. Imagine you're a salesman for IBM, and they come up, the boys in the back room, in Endicott, New York, at T.J. Watson Research Center, come up with this new whiz-bang secure system. You just sold the bank, PNC here, $100 million worth of goods. They tell you next week, hey, congrats on the sale, but you got to go back there and tell them that's not secure. Our new system is. You got to throw that all away, can't use any of it, and the new system is going to be $200 million. Good luck making that sales call. Try that, and they will never find your body, guaranteed. That'll be the last sales call you make. So that's the way. That's the real reason why. They implemented something called the RACF. It helped. It was better than doing nothing, but they couldn't build all of it. The dirty little secret. By the way, if you Google that, you get all kinds of strange things that come up. So if you want to have a lot of fun, just Google that one. We know how to solve the security problem. By God, we know how to do it. It's been right in front of us all along. October '72, that's the Air Force report. Okay? Barry Schrager at IBM headed up the project to try to do it. Couldn't because due to the channel situation, the sales. The mid-1970s, DEC was transitioning from the 16-bit PDP-11 line to 32-bit VAX. They were the ones who could start with a clean sheet of paper. And they did. So the reference monitor and all the secure architectural things that you need right above the first level interrupt handler that have to be there as part of the OS, DEC put in their VAX VMS operating system. And what happened, of course, is Compaq bought DEC, HP buys Compaq, and the only transaction-based operating system with a real-time kernel that's never been successfully hacked when configured properly, like anything, when configured properly, is OVMS. And what happened just this past month? HP sold that to VMS Software, a brand new startup with a huge amount of funding behind them. A huge amount, mondo amount. And they're taking that up to where it needs to go, maintain the security rating. And the neat thing about it is the NSA does not have a backdoor to that system. 2 reasons. Number one, HP wouldn't give it to them. But the reason why HP wouldn't give it to them is there isn't one. It doesn't exist. It was built without one. You can't hack what you can't get to. You can't steal what's not there. So it obeys all the Air Force rules and therefore forms a trusted computing base. And that's really the important thing. It's out there. That's a reference monitor. That's the logical structure that must exist at the core of your operating system if you're going to deploy something critical on it. If you have that at the core level, you can end up with a secure system. If you don't, you won't. Bold statements, but proven true by hackers every day for me. They make our market. We should put the Chinese on the payroll, I think. But that's the deal. That's the structure. Okay. So defense, some general guidelines. I'll wrap this up. This is an IQ war, like I said. Brains beats bucks. You want to focus on that. You want to identify the paths for critical data. Remember that network mess I showed you? Where's your critical data being generated? Where does it flow? Who's got access? All the network connections. This is a big job, but it's got to get done. You've got to identify that. What are the human risk factors? Who's allowed to access what? What are the credentials? Ensure that the backups are regularly created, and operational backups, not just backing up the data. Just backing up the data, you can't use it. Because we conduct fire drills in my company. Fire drill is where I just unplug something from the server. A hard power down. Nasty. Everything in an unknown state. And we say go. Knock on my office door when we're back up and running and our customers have communication. That's what matters. Not just I have a data backup. Yeah, when are you going to be back online providing clinical decision support? An hour, a day, a week, a month? What are you going to tell a guy in a heart-lung machine when the firmware went haywire? Hold his breath? I mean, you can't do that. You got to be a little bit better about it than that. And so that's one of the key things. And also, know where you're getting your stuff from. Just this past August, last month, IBM sold its entire Blade server production to Lenovo. Do you trust that now? I don't. I sure wouldn't buy any of those products down the road. Don't mean to insult IBM, but I'm here to tell you the straight truth and the facts, and that's what they are. You can like them or not, but that's the deal. I wouldn't be buying anything that produced there. There's a security checklist. I won't go over all this stuff. There's a bunch of things that you should be doing. Okay, most of you know what the key things on the list, but that's where you should be doing. There's a set of standards produced by ISA and IEC that you can Google and look up of things you should do. You can make a list of this, right? Check them off, or go to your IT people and make sure they're doing that. That at least shows good faith that you're doing something there. But specifically, assume your network is polluted with evil packets. Don't assume it's clean. Maintain your standard security procedures, of course. They won't solve the problem, but they minimize the damage. It's air gap critical systems. I know people hate that, but you're going to need to do that. Okay? If it's a very critical system and only certain people need access to it, don't just plug in the RJ45 and let the world have at it. Do something about that. Okay? Don't import important stuff on a handheld. Just don't allow it, because these OSs are not secure. If it's on here, it can be hacked, and hacked too easily. As bad as desktop is, this is worse. So don't put anything important on there. And don't assign mission-critical systems or procedures or software to things that don't have a trusted computing base. Because no matter what you do, following all those things in the previous slide, somebody can still get into you and hack you. Our software is, of course, built upon a trusted computing base. That's why I picked it. So I wouldn't have that problem. I don't want to be awake at night wondering, is my client going to be mad because some health data got stolen? I'm not going to worry about that. You know, that's the deal there. And if you got to re-architect certain mission-critical systems, then that's the time to do it. Because the key thing is, people say, well, that's expensive, it's installed, blah, blah, blah. Agreed. Absolutely true. But what's a lawsuit going to cost you? Lost business, reputation, legal bills, what's that going to cost you? And if you think, oh, it's not going to happen to me, now that's Russian roulette. That's Russian roulette. Those attacks are coming, and they're coming fast. Faster, more furious, and they're better designed than they used to be. Because now healthcare, as of 2013, is now the #1 market area that's being attacked. They rose to 40, last year there were 43% of all attacks were directed at healthcare. So that wasn't a fishing expedition, that's a target. They're not using shotguns now, they're using high-powered rifles with scopes. They're aiming at you. And that's very important to know. And lastly, get a copy of the Orange Book. Make sure you understand the standards. Do what you can to get things, adhere to them. Contact your vendors. Put pressure on your vendors. Say, hey, you got to give me better stuff here. That's always good to do. Implement, by the way, one cheapie, implement two-factor authentication. That alone will cut down the bulk of your attacks, right there. And it's cheap and easy to do. It drives the password guessers absolutely batty, just implementing that. Disallow jump drive access to any critical system. I mean, physically remove the port. I once served as a consultant to the Cuyahoga County Board of Election about election security. And the guy said, can you hack the machine? I said, leave the room for 5 minutes. Give me your spelling your name so I could put you up for next election. They had USB ports everywhere. Way too easy to do. They've since adopted some of my suggestions, remove those, and keep a hash table of the firmware so when they take them in for repair, they at least know if the software's been played with. Otherwise, how would you know? Turn in a factory for an upgrade. Use secure platform for anything important. And two things. Spend the dollars to do it right the first time. I guarantee you it's going to cost you way more to do it again and to fight the lawsuits. As Home Depot is finding out, Target's finding out, other hotels are finding out, and other places, Community Health Partners is finding out. They're all going to find out. And be open to new ideas and paradigm shifts. That's a biggie. Because sometimes the best solutions are ones that you haven't thought of. If we're simple, somebody else probably already had it. And if the current thinking and the direction you're going was working, none of us would need to be here. So be open to those kinds of new ideas.